Hi there guys and girls. I thought I'll do a video on simulation distance, render distance and mob spawning and try to do this as simple and easy as possible. As you can see, I have created a perimeter here to help with a little bit of a demonstration. And I'm going to show you guys and explain a bit on, well, render distance and simulation distance. So the first thing, let's just head a bit this way and we can have a look here. Before we discuss what that is, your two main things to remember is render distance is how far you can literally see in the game. How many chunks you can see ahead of you or around you. So at the moment, I am set for 18 chunk simulation distance or render distance. Well, actually, technically, my simulation distance is only 8. So if we go into the settings, you can see here, simulation distance is 8. My render distance is on 18 chunks. So if I drop this down to 8 there, and then you'll see the difference where we can't see everything around us. See, it becomes less because you're stopping the amount of chunks you can view. Now, your simulation distance works in the same way, except let's just go up back to there, and then we can see. Okay, now you see, now we can load in more chunks because we're able to view further. So render distance is only your line of sight, how far you can see, how many chunks or how much of the map you can view. Your simulation distance is what can run in the background, where the mobs spawn, what works, your redstone farms, all that is affected by your simulation distance and obviously mainly your mob spawning. So if we quickly go down to here, now you see this little red bubble over here. This is your 24 block spawning radius. So no mobs will spawn within 24 blocks. So there you can see there are a little platform there for mob spawning. So that will only spawn there. Now if that platform was here in front of me here, mobs won't spawn. They will only spawn after this. Whoops. We fell off. So as you can see there, all those mobs spawn. Now depending on what your simulation distance is, starting from 4 chunks all the way up to, let's say, 15 chunks or 10 chunks, or depending on what version of the game you play and what your settings are. But the one main thing I'm aware of is if you're playing on Bedrock, you need to adjust your simulation distance at the start of your game. You can't really go in afterwards and then if you're on 4 chunks and change it to 6 or 8. So you got to decide on how many chunks you want to load depending on what you're going to be building when you start your game. Unfortunately, like on Java Edition, we can change it at any time. And you need to remember also to mob proof whatever area you have. So standing here in the center, in this perimeter, nothing can spawn anywhere. I've got glass all over the floor at the bottom, so no mobs will spawn there. They will only spawn in this area. So you can see there's a lot of mobs in here already because they have nowhere else to spawn. So they will spawn until they fill up the mob cap. So you can see there's quite a bit of mobs in here. Now, if we head out a bit here, and you see these different colors I've got allocated here. So if we quickly go into our, we disable that, and we enable the despawn there. Now, this, whoopsie, is your despawning sphere basically. So mobs will spawn anywhere outside of this red area, the 24 blocks away from me. But depending on your simulation distance as well, they will despawn. So technically mobs will spawn anyway on this green line, but can despawn after that. So the smaller your simulation distance, closer towards you, mobs will despawn quicker. So if we quickly go in here, so if you work it out, that's 32 blocks. So 32 blocks is only 2 chunks. So up to here is 32 blocks. That's 2 chunks, and then it all goes up to 4 and 6 chunks onward. And if we go quickly to the next one, we want to activate, where is yellow? There we got 64. Okay, so now we're working on a bigger simulation distance. So if I had this platform now further out, which is close to the edge there, mobs will be able to spawn further because my simulation distance is bigger. So if you want to build a lot of mob farms or any special farms or redstone farms particularly, you need to adjust your simulation distance if you want to be able to activate more farms at a certain time or all at once in a certain area. If you've got a big area like this and you want to use all the farms at once, you need to activate your simulation distance to a greater size basically. Most people usually play with a 6 or 8 simulation distance depending on your server or where you're playing. But even with Bedrock as well, I would suggest playing with at least 6, so it gives you a little bit of room more to build your farms, especially if you want to AFK somewhere. You could have a farm on the one side there, you can have one over there, on each side around you, so nothing will spawn nearby you, and then all your farms within that simulation distance can work at the same time. And obviously the biggest area you can work with is 128 blocks. Nothing will spawn or work if we go into here. We activate our biggest sphere, which is this one. There we go. That's 128 blocks. So you can see this perimeter is basically covering 128 blocks. And you must remember your simulation distance, well, not the render distance as much, but simulation distance and mob spawning works in a sphere way. So up or down, left, right, whichever direction, it works only from that area. So even though you might have a perimeter like this, nothing is going to spawn in this area because it's 128 blocks away, because we're working on a diagonal distance from where you're going to be standing. But here, being right at the edge, the mobs can still spawn there. I have been asked before about whether you're building up in the sky or whether you're building up low in the world. So you can see this perimeter is all the way down to bedrock. Now mobs do spawn, or yeah, will spawn faster if they are further down, or should I say the lowest in the world. So it's always better to build a farm as low as possible. The only downside is you need to mob proof. So either you're going to have to not activate, but create a perimeter, something similar to this. Otherwise it's building up in the air. Now you won't have the same rates, but it will still work. So if you want something easy to do, then build it up in the sky and you can still have your farms and things up there. Depending on the type of farm, you can build it over an ocean, because obviously you've got the water and there's less caves and things closer to you to do it. But the best thing is to always light up your caves, especially if you don't have a perimeter like this set up. So your main thing to remember, mobs will only spawn after 24 blocks away from the player, wherever you might decide to AFK, and you need to adjust your light level, because the light levels, as you can see here, now I'm standing here, this is 14, and it goes down, 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 down. Now you can see here the light level starts changing. So technically mobs can spawn there. So if you put a torch or a light source or something there, you can go up to 14 blocks. You need to make sure there's no light. So you can see everywhere inside there, it's a 0 light level. So that's where mobs can spawn. So that you also need to remember. And you've got to keep into account what kind of farm you're also going to build. If you're using, for instance, spawners that you find naturally spawning, cave spawners and things like that, spiders, skeletons and zombies, they only work 16 blocks away. So you have to be at least 16 blocks away from the spawner in order to activate it. Otherwise, that is it. That is the simplest way to, well, I can try to explain it to you. If you guys got any questions or suggestions or anything you'd like to know, just leave a comment below. And you can check out my other videos on simulation distance and render distance. A few on the channel that might help you out. And so, thanks for joining today, guys. Enjoy your Minecraft.